As we saw in a previous video, we used to install DOS directly on hardware and then install Windows on top of that. Well, since the Windows NT kernel came out, this was after Windows 98, we no longer did that. This is what we did instead. We would install Windows with an NT kernel, which they all still have today with Windows 10, directly on top of our hardware. But now we lost DOS. So how do we have command lines? How do we do a command line that's similar to DOS in Windows? Well, the answer came in the form of this, the cmd.exe, which was invented by a lady named Therese Stoll, and this is her LinkedIn page. She's still around and still doing her thing. She's working in London now at a company called Pivotal Software. But if I come down here to her profile, her career achievements, you see right here, single-handedly wrote the command line as part of the team to build the first version of Windows NT. Yes, indeed, she says that she single-handedly wrote this cmd.exe command line that goes into Windows NT. So let's switch over now to our virtual machines. Now, you remember before we brought up, if you watched the previous video, that we brought up in Windows 98 the command.com, command.com. That was the DOS command line interpreter. There were actually 3 files in DOS that were required: io.sys, ms-dos.sys, and command.com. As long as you had those 3, you would have a bootable DOS disk. You didn't have to go through some special formatting in order to make it bootable. You just put those 3 files on it. It was bootable. So that command.com, command.com, was the actual MS-DOS command line interpreter. But now we have over in Windows 10, if we were to type here command.com, command.com, and it didn't finish. There we go. Command.com. You see that I do have the command prompt because it's seeing that, but it's not actually giving me command.com. In fact, it does suggest a website that I can go to read more about command.com. But what we have instead is cmd.exe, which is the command prompt that was written by Ms. Stoll. So now you see that I no longer have this DOS, MS-DOS that I had back here in Windows 98. Now I just have what's called a command prompt. And so what we're doing here now is we're looking at this, where we have this embedded on top of Windows NT, or what's the Windows NT kernel, any of the Windows NT kernel versions of Windows, that is from NT on. And we have this command line interpreter called cmd.exe that runs through Windows now in order to get to the hardware. So we have a reversal now of what we actually had early on before we had the NT kernel.